The underestimated species. The bridge of the Krelian Empire warship Dominion's edge hummed with the quiet confidence of absolute power. Commander Zelthar stood before the massive viewport, his forearms crossed behind his back as he gazed at the small human trading station floating in the void ahead. The station looked pathetic compared to his fleet of 50 warships, each one bristling with enough firepower to glass a small moon. "Commander," his tactical officer spoke from behind him, "the human station has acknowledged our presence. They're requesting to know our intentions." Zelthar's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among the Krelians. His species had conquered 17 star systems in the past century, absorbing or destroying any civilization that dared to stand in their way. The humans were just another minor inconvenience, a species that had somehow managed to establish a few trade routes despite their obvious weakness. "Open a channel," Zelthar commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never been denied. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a human female sitting calmly behind a desk. She appeared to be middle-aged by human standards, with short dark hair and eyes that seemed almost amused. The nameplate on her desk read, "Sarah Chen, Station Manager." "Greetings, Commander," Sarah said with a polite smile. "Welcome to Omega-7 Trading Post. How can we assist you today?" Zelthar stepped forward, his imposing 8-foot frame filling the screen on his side. "I am Commander Zelthar of the Krelian Empire. This system now falls under Imperial jurisdiction. You will surrender all cargo vessels, transfer all resources to our ships, and evacuate this station within the next rotation cycle." Sarah's smile didn't waver. "I see. That's quite a request, Commander. May I ask what authority grants you jurisdiction over this neutral system?" The question caught Zelthar off guard. In all his years of conquest, no species had ever questioned his authority. They either submitted immediately or prepared for war. This human's calm demeanor was unsettling. "The authority of superior firepower," Zelthar replied, gesturing toward his fleet. "Surely you can see the futility of resistance. Your species is known throughout the galaxy as merchants and diplomats, not warriors. I'm offering you the chance to leave with your lives." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "That's very considerate of you, Commander. I appreciate the generous offer. However, I'm afraid I'll need to make a few calls before we can give you an answer. Would 24 hours be acceptable?" Zelthar's secondary eyes widened in disbelief. Behind him, his bridge crew exchanged glances of confusion and barely contained laughter. No species had ever asked for time to consider surrender when facing the full might of a Krelian battle fleet. "You wish to make calls?" Zelthar asked, certain he had misunderstood. "Yes, you see, decisions like this require consultation with our partners. I'm sure you understand the importance of proper procedures." The commander's mandibles clicked rapidly now, a sign of growing agitation. "Partners? What partners could possibly assist you against the might of the Krelian Empire?" Sarah's smile seemed to grow slightly wider. "Oh, you'd be surprised, Commander. We humans have made quite a few friends over the years. 24 hours. Zelthar turned to his tactical officer, who was struggling not to laugh openly. The entire bridge crew seemed to find the human's request hilarious. Here was a single trading station, defended by nothing more than a few cargo ships and mining vessels, asking for time to call for help against 50 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy. "Very well," Zelthar said, turning back to the screen. 24 hours. But know this, human. No force in this galaxy will come to your aid. Your species' reputation for weakness precedes you. Thank you for your patience, Commander. We'll be in touch." The transmission ended, leaving Zelthar staring at a blank screen. Around him, his crew continued to chuckle and make jokes about human naivety. But something about the woman's confidence bothered him. No species facing extinction should smile like that. As the hours passed, Zelthar found himself increasingly puzzled by the human's behavior. Instead of preparing for evacuation or mounting some pathetic defense, the station's inhabitants seemed to be going about their normal routines. Cargo ships continued their scheduled runs. Mining vessels kept working the nearby asteroid field, and through the viewport, he could see humans walking the station's corridors without any apparent concern. "Sir," his sensor officer called out, "we're detecting some unusual energy readings from the human station." "What kind of readings?" "It's difficult to classify. The energy signatures don't match any known propulsion or weapon systems. It's almost like they're charging something, but our scans can't penetrate their hull to determine what." Zelthar frowned. Human technology was supposed to be primitive compared to Krelian engineering. Their ships were slow, their weapons outdated, and their defensive capabilities laughable. Yet here they were, generating energy signatures that his advanced sensors couldn't identify. "Maintain watch," he ordered, "and scan for any approaching vessels. If they're calling for reinforcements, I want to know about it immediately." Hours passed with no sign of incoming ships. Zelthar's confidence began to return. Perhaps the humans were simply buying time to accept the inevitable. Their mysterious energy readings were probably just some futile attempt to boost their station's defensive shields, a gesture as meaningless as it was desperate. As the 24-hour deadline approached, Zelthar prepared to contact the station again. He would give them one final chance to surrender peacefully before demonstrating the consequences of defying the Krelian Empire. His finger hovered over the communication controls when his sensor officer suddenly straightened in alarm. "Commander, we have a massive energy signature appearing directly off our starboard bow." "What?" Zelthar spun toward the main viewer just as space itself seemed to ripple and bend. Reality twisted like water, and from the impossible distortion emerged something that made his blood run cold. It was a ship, but not just any ship. It was enormous, easily 3 times the size of his flagship. Its hull was a sleek, predatory silver that seemed to absorb light, and along its surface, patterns of blue energy pulsed like a heartbeat. The vessel's design was unlike anything in Imperial records. Organic curves mixed with angular efficiency, creating something that looked less like a machine and more like a living creature. "How did it get so close without being detected?" Zelthar demanded. "Sir, it wasn't there a moment ago. It just appeared. Our sensors show no trace of how it arrived. No jump signature, no engine trail, nothing." The massive human ship hung in space like a sleeping predator, its presence somehow making Zelthar's entire fleet seem small and insignificant. Along its hull, he could make out script in human writing, though his translation systems were having difficulty with the elegant lettering. "What does it say?" he asked. His communications officer squinted at the display. I think it says, peaceful resolution, sir." Before Zelthar could respond, his communications board lit up with an incoming transmission. This time, the human on the screen was different, a woman in what appeared to be a military uniform, though it was unlike any military dress he had ever seen. It was elegant, functional, and somehow projected an aura of absolute competence. "Good afternoon, Commander Zelthar," the woman said with the same unsettling smile he'd seen on the station manager's face. "I'm Captain Maria Santos of the UES Peaceful Resolution. I understand you've been having a conversation with our friends at Omega 7. Zelthar struggled to maintain his composure. "I am conducting official Krelian Empire business. This system falls under our jurisdiction." "Oh, I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding," Captain Santos replied, her tone remaining conversational despite the tension. "You see, this system is under the protection of the Soul Defense Network. Has been for about, 37 years now. I'm surprised your intelligence briefings didn't mention that." "Impossible," Zelthar snarled. "Human ships are inferior. Your technology is decades behind ours. How could you possibly?" He stopped mid-sentence as his tactical display began screaming warnings. New contacts were appearing all around his fleet, dozens of them. Ships were materializing from seemingly empty space, each one appearing with the same impossible stealth technology that had hidden the Peaceful Resolution. The vessels varied in size and design, but they all shared the same predatory elegance as the flagship. Some were sleek destroyers that moved through space like hunting sharks. Others were massive battleships that bristled with weapon systems he couldn't identify. A few appeared to be carrier vessels, their bays already launching clouds of fighter craft that moved with inhuman precision. "That's not possible," Zelthar whispered, staring at his tactical display in disbelief. His 50 ships, which had seemed like an unstoppable armada just moments before, were now completely surrounded by nearly 100 human vessels. Captain Santos' smile never wavered. "Commander, I think we need to have a little chat about the current situation. Would you mind if I came aboard? I promise to keep my hands visible at all times." For the first time in his military career, Commander Zelthar found himself completely outmaneuvered by a species he had considered beneath notice. As alarms blared across his bridge, and his crew struggled to understand how they had walked into such a perfect trap, he began to realize that everything the Krelian Empire thought they knew about humanity was about to change. The humans were still smiling, and somehow, that was the most terrifying thing of all. The revelation. Captain Maria Santos materialized on the bridge of the Dominion's edge in a column of soft blue light, her smile never faltering, as she took in the shocked expressions of the Krelian crew. The teleportation technology was yet another impossible advancement that Zelthar's intelligence reports had failed to mention. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," she said pleasantly, clasping her hands behind her back. "I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of bringing some visual aids." With a gesture from Santos, the main view screen flickered to life, showing the space around both fleets. What Zelthar saw made his 4 hearts skip several beats. The human ships weren't just surrounding his fleet, they were everywhere. Vessels hung in perfect formation above, below, and at every conceivable angle around his warships. Each one bore names that seemed almost mocking in their gentleness. Gentle persuasion, friendly chat, diplomatic solution, reasonable discussion. "How many?" Zelthar managed to ask. "Oh, this is just the local patrol group," Santos replied casually. "About 230 vessels, give or take. The main fleet is still back at Sol, enjoying their shore leave." Zelthar's tactical officer checked his instruments frantically. "Sir, our weapon systems are. They're not responding to commands." Santos nodded sympathetically. "Yes, I'm afraid we had to implement some safety protocols. You understand, with so many ships in close proximity, we can't have any accidents. Our AI systems have temporarily assumed control of your weapons to prevent any misunderstandings. Your artificial intelligence systems have infiltrated our computers." Zelthar's voice rose in disbelief. "Well, infiltrated sounds so hostile," Santos said with a slight chuckle. "Let's say they've made friends with your computer systems. Human AI tends to be very social. They love making new connections." As if to demonstrate the point, every screen on the Krelian bridge suddenly displayed the same message in perfect Krelian script. "Hello, we're your new computer friends. Please don't worry. We're just here to make sure everyone stays safe. Have a wonderful day." The emoticon at the end somehow made it worse. Zelthar slumped into his command chair, the weight of the situation finally settling on him. "What do you want?" Santos walked to the viewport, gazing out at the human fleet with obvious pride. "You know, Commander, that's exactly the right question. But before I answer it, I think there are some things you should understand about humans." She turned back to face him, and for the first time, her smile took on a more serious edge. "Your Empire's intelligence files describe us as weak merchants and diplomats, pacifists who avoid conflict. And you know what? You're absolutely right." Zelthar blinked in confusion. "But your fleet exists precisely because we avoid conflict," Santos interrupted. "You see, Commander, humans learned something very important a long time ago. The best way to maintain peace is to be so overwhelmingly powerful that nobody in their right mind would consider disturbing it." She gestured toward the view screen, where the human ships moved in perfect coordination around the trapped Creelian fleet. Every one of these vessels was built with a single purpose: to make war so unthinkable that diplomacy becomes the only rational choice. "But your traders," Zelthar protested weakly. "Your species focuses on commerce and negotiation." "Oh, we certainly do," Santos agreed. "Trade is wonderful. It builds relationships, creates mutual dependencies, and gives everyone a reason to keep talking instead of shooting. But, Commander, did you ever wonder why human traders are welcome in every civilized system? Why our merchant vessels travel safely through space controlled by species that regularly war with each other?" The truth was beginning to dawn on Zelthar, and he didn't like where it was leading. Santos continued, her voice taking on the patient tone of a teacher, explaining something to a particularly slow student. "It's because everyone knows that attacking the human trader means dealing with the Soul Defense Network. Not immediately, not dramatically, but inevitably. We've spent the last century making sure that every species in this galaxy understands one fundamental truth. Humans are peaceful, but humanity is not helpless." As if summoned by her words, the communications board lit up with dozens of incoming transmissions. Zelthar's communications officer looked bewildered as he tried to process them all. "Sir, we're receiving calls from everywhere. The Andromedans, the Centauri Commonwealth, the Free Traders Alliance, even the Neutral Zone Confederacy. They're all offering support to the humans." Santos' smile returned to its earlier warmth. "As I mentioned, we've made quite a few friends over the years. Funny how that works when you spend more time helping people than conquering them." Zelthar stared at the tactical display, watching as more ships continued to arrive. Not all of them were human. He could see the distinctive silhouettes of vessels from a dozen different species, all taking positions alongside the human fleet. The Creelian Empire had stumbled into something far larger than a simple territorial dispute. "You've been watching us," he said, the pieces finally falling into place. "All this time, you've been watching the Empire expand, studying our tactics, preparing." "Of course we have," Santos replied. "The Creelian Empire has been on our watch list since your third conquest." "Oh, don't look so surprised. Did you really think you could absorb 17 civilizations without someone taking notice? Human intelligence networks are quite thorough, Commander. We've had observers in your territory for decades." The revelation hit Zelthar like a physical blow. The trade agreements, the merchant convoys, the diplomatic missions, all quite legitimate, Santos assured him, but also quite useful for gathering information. Amazing what people will discuss around traders they consider beneath their notice. She walked back to stand directly in front of Zelthar's chair, her expression growing more serious. "Here's what's going to happen, Commander. You're going to contact your empire and explain that humanity is not the weak species your intelligence reports suggested. You're going to recommend that future expansion plans avoid any system under Sol Defense Network protection. And you're going to suggest that perhaps, just perhaps, the empire might benefit more from trade relationships than conquest. And if I refuse?" Santos' smile never wavered, but something cold flickered in her eyes. "Well, that would be unfortunate. You see, we've been very patient with the Creelian Empire. We've watched you conquer system after system, always hoping you'd eventually realize that cooperation is more profitable than subjugation. But patience has its limits." The view screen shifted to show a new image, a massive space station, clearly human in design, bristling with defensive installations and surrounded by hundreds of warships. The scale was breathtaking, dwarfing even the largest Creelian military installations. "This is Fortress Sol, our primary defensive installation," Santos explained. "What you're seeing represents about 15% of the Sol Defense Network's total military capacity. The rest is distributed throughout human space and our allied systems." Zelthar's tactical officer had gone pale. "Sir, the energy readings from that station, if those are weapons." "They are," Santos confirmed, "each one capable of sterilizing a planet from 3 light years away. But don't worry, They've never been fired in anger. We much prefer the diplomatic approach." She gestured, and the view screen returned to showing the current standoff. "So, Commander, what will it be? A peaceful resolution to this misunderstanding, or shall we demonstrate why humanity has remained unconquered for the past 2 centuries?" Zelthar looked around his bridge at his crew, all of whom were staring at him with expressions ranging from fear to desperate hope. His empire had built its reputation on the inevitability of its conquests, but here he sat, completely outmaneuvered by a species they had dismissed as irrelevant. "You could destroy us right now," he said quietly. "We could," Santos agreed, "but that would be wasteful. The Krelian Empire has advanced technology, skilled engineers, and a proud military tradition. Those are assets, not liabilities. The galaxy is a big place, Commander, plenty of room for everyone to prosper without stepping on each other." She activated a small device on her wrist, and a holographic display appeared between them showing star charts, trade routes, and economic projections. Human economic analysts have been working on some interesting proposals: mutual defense pacts, technology exchanges, joint exploration missions to the galactic rim. The profits from cooperative ventures could far exceed anything the Empire has gained through conquest. For the first time in the conversation, Zelthar found himself actually considering her words rather than simply trying to find a way out of his predicament. The projections she was showing were impressive: trade relationships that could benefit both species, defensive alliances that would make both civilizations stronger. "Why?" he asked finally. "Why offer cooperation instead of simply destroying us as a threat?" Santos smiled, became genuinely warm. "Because that's what humans do, Commander. We build bridges instead of walls. We make friends instead of enemies. We've learned that the universe is far more interesting when it's full of diverse civilizations working together, rather than empty space ruled by a single empire." She moved toward the teleportation point, but paused to look back at him. "You have 24 hours to contact your superiors and explain the situation. I suggest you emphasize the benefits of peaceful coexistence over the alternatives. Trust me, the view from the winning side is much better when you're looking at partners instead of conquered territories." As the blue light began to form around her, Santos added one final thought. "Oh, and Commander, next time you encounter human traders, remember that they're not just merchants. They're ambassadors of a civilization that prefers to smile rather than scowl. But a smile backed by the Soul Defense Network is still a smile you should take very seriously." She vanished in the column of light, leaving Zelthar alone with his crew and the weight of a decision that would reshape the Krelian Empire's future. Outside the viewport, the human fleet maintained its perfect formation, weapons powered down but presence unmistakable. The humans were still smiling, and finally, Zelthar was beginning to understand why that was the most powerful weapon of all.